Imagine, if you will, that your local pub landlord suddenly barred you from ever visiting the pub down the road.
You'd be absolutely furious, wouldn't you?
You would. I mean, it is wonderfully convenient to have your usual pint waiting for you on the bar. But if someone from the council suddenly decreed that, from now on, this is your pub, full stop, and you have absolutely no say in the matter.
It would be a complete violation of trust.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a topic that on the surface sounds like a slightly dry, somewhat tedious piece of Whitehall bureaucracy.
Yes, the beautifully named NHS Electronic Prescription Service patient nomination principles.
Very catchy. But our mission today, looking through these official source materials, is to unpack the exact rules that govern how your electronic prescriptions actually zip around the NHS network.
Because whilst it sounds dry, it is in fact a remarkably robust defense of your personal freedom. We're going to explore how fiercely this system protects your absolute right to choose exactly who handles your medication.
So let's start with that fundamental concept, what the NHS calls nomination. To be perfectly frank, it sounds like we are putting someone forward for a knighthood.
It does, yes. But nomination is simply the formal process where you decide which dispenser receives your electronic prescriptions.
Right, and it's just the one chemist down the road, usually.
Well, actually, you are allowed up to 3 simultaneous nominations, depending on your clinical needs.
Oh, 3, I had no idea.
Yeah, so you might have one community or internet pharmacy, then you could have one dispensing appliance contractor.
Sorry, it's
That-
dispensing appliance contracts.
Yeah, it's a DAC.
Yeah.
They handle specialist items,
Yeah.
things like stoma or incontinence products.
Yeah.
And then if you happen to live in a rural area where it applies, you might also have a dispensing GP practice.
Ah, I see. So you have these distinct slots available to you.
Spot on. But the golden rule underpinning all of this, the entire architecture, is absolute, uncoerced patient choice.
Right. It's a system built entirely around your sovereignty as a patient. But before we get into the drama of what happens when these rules are broken, we really ought to establish what a proper nomination actually looks like.
Yes, the first standard dictates that patients must choose their own nomination and be fully informed before doing so.
Fully informed? What does that actually mean in this context?
It means you need to know that nomination isn't mandatory, for a start. You don't need a smartphone or a computer to use it, and crucially, you can change your mind at any time.
Well, I want to push back on the logistics of this, though, because hearing all these strict requirements for informed consent, does this mean I have to sign a lengthy, tedious contract every time I pop down to the chemist for my repeat medication?
No, thankfully not.
Because that sounds like a bit of a muddle for everyone involved.
It would be a complete faff. The NHS deliberately avoided creating a bureaucratic nightmare here. So consent doesn't actually have to be in writing.
Oh, really?
No. But the healthcare provider must have an auditable process in place.
An auditable process? Right. What does that actually look like on a busy Tuesday morning in a pharmacy?
Well, it means the pharmacy must operate under a standard operating procedure, an SOP, that clearly outlines how their staff ask for consent and how they record it.
So they can't just tick a box on their computer screen without telling you.
Exactly. If an inspector comes knocking, they have to demonstrate their methodology. And furthermore, checking consent isn't a one-off event. It is very much an ongoing process.
Meaning they have to keep asking.
Basically, yes. If your circumstances change, or a completely new prescription is issued, consent really must be resought. It prevents dispensers from simply assuming they own your loyalty forever, just because you used them once during a fortnight of bad weather.
Which brings a rather predictable element into the conversation, doesn't it? Profit.
Ah, yes.
Human nature.
Having established that your ongoing consent is required, we have to look at how the desire for a bit of market share could muddy the waters. Hence, the strict rules against bribery and influence. Yes, Standard 2. Dispensers and prescribers are strictly forbidden from unduly influencing your choice.
So let's say I'm in my GP's office and I just ask them, who should I nominate? What happens then?
Your GP cannot play favorites. They are legally prohibited from nudging you towards the pharmacy next door,
Yeah.
just because it's convenient.
So what do? Do they just hand you a phone book?
Not quite. They must provide a full, neutral list. Usually they do this by pulling up the NHS Directory of Services, the DOS, or showing you the Find a Pharmacy tool online.
I see. I was reading through the source material on this, and there's a wonderfully specific detail that I found highly amusing.
About the banned inducements.
Yes. The guiding specifically states that dispensing contractors are strictly banned from offering gifts, rewards, or, and I quote rather grandly, share dividends of profits or discounts.
It's quite the image, isn't it?
It's just so slightly self-deprecating about British consumer culture. The fact that the NHS had to explicitly write down a rule banning chemists from bribing patients with stock options just to get their repeat paracetamol prescriptions.
Here are your statins, and here's a 5% stake in the company.
Exactly.
Eh.
But I suppose there is a serious point behind it.
A very serious point. Healthcare decisions must be made purely on suitability, not financial inducements.
Suitability meaning things like geography and opening times.
Exactly. Or whether they deliver to housebound patients. It ensures a level playing field across the NHS, so independent pharmacies aren't crushed by massive corporate chains offering free toasters.
Right. Well, assuming you haven't been bribed with a toaster, but you simply find your current pharmacy is, well, rubbish. They keep losing things, the queues are awful. How easy is it to actually jump ship?
In theory, it is entirely frictionless. You can change or remove your nomination as many times as you like at any EPS site, or even from your sofa using the NHS app.
But the timing of when you do that is actually quite crucial, isn't it?
Yes, the logistics can get a bit messy if you aren't careful.
It strikes me as being rather like trying to change your train ticket whilst the train is already moving down the tracks. It can be done, but it's a bit of a performance.
That's a spot-on analogy, actually. To understand it, we have to look at the mechanics of the electronic repeat dispensing cycle, the ERD.
Right.
When your GP issues a batch of prescriptions, they sit securely on a central NHS database called the spine.
Spine. Sounds like something out of a spy novel.
It does. Now, if you change your nomination partway through a dispensing cycle, any untouched prescriptions on the spine will simply transfer to your new pharmacy.
Okay, that seems straightforward. Where's the train ticket faff in all of this?
The faff occurs if you remove a nomination mid-cycle without choosing a new one immediately.
Oh, I see.
The digital train basically stops on the tracks. You would have to go all the way back to your GP for a whole new prescription.
Goodness, nobody wants to do that.
No, it's a huge administrative burden, which is why the guidance offers a top tip. The absolute best time to change your nomination is shortly after you've collected your last repeat.
So the slate is wiped clean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, there is a fascinating edge case we should mention regarding changing your mind.
Oh.
What happens if you don't change anything, but the pharmacy itself is bought out? A change of ownership.
Yes. Let's say my lovely independent chemist is swallowed up by a massive conglomerate. Do I have to renominate them?
Well, the new owner actually has a grace period of up to 6 months to notify you of the change.
6 months. I'm afraid that seems like an awfully long time to keep quiet about who's handling my medical data.
It is a long time, but it provides a basis for what they call implied continued consent. If they had to get fresh, explicit consent from every single patient on day one, the whole system would just collapse.
Pure pragmatism, then.
Absolutely. However, if they do notify you, ideally face-to-face when you go in and you think the new management is rubbish, they are strictly obligated to help you change your nomination.
Yeah.
They cannot make it difficult for you to leave.
Right. So up until now, we've really been talking about the traditional high street. GPs, pharmacists, patients.
Yeah.
But we must frankly address the modern reality of all this.
The tech sector.
Exactly. It's not just doctors handling this data anymore. It's app developers and massive IT systems.
And those third-party services dealing with the EPS must align perfectly with these exact same principles.
But let's look at how that actually works on a smartphone screen. If an app is showing you pharmacy choices, surely the developers want to push their own commercial partners. Can they just show you a curated, preferred subset of chemists?
No, they cannot. That is legally unacceptable. They must offer the full choice. Or, at the very absolute minimum, they have to show at least 5 dispensing contractors in your immediate area.
Okay, but to be perfectly frank, tech companies love harvesting data. It's what they do. What stops them from just peeking at my past choices on the NHS system to guess what I want and subtly nudging me that way?
This is where the data protection boundaries are brilliant. System suppliers are outright banned from developing any functionality that accesses your nomination data from the Patient Demographic Service, the PDS.
Banned completely.
They cannot query it or change it without your explicit consent for each occurrence.
Wait, for each occurrence? So they can't just hide a clause in their terms and conditions on day one and spy on my choices forever?
Absolutely not. There's
Sure.
no perpetual backdoor access. And there is a brilliant phrase in the legislation that sums this up. A previous nomination is no guarantee of future intent.
A previous nomination is no guarantee of future intent. That is quite profound, really. It almost sounds like a constitutional right.
It functions like one in the digital ecosystem. It means there is no legal basis to access your PDS data unless you are actively, currently presenting yourself to make a change or collect a prescription.
So they have to treat you as a dynamic human being whose mind might change today, regardless of what you did 3 years ago.
Precisely.
That is incredibly refreshing. But of course, despite all these terribly polite and robust rules, we live in the real world. Things inevitably go pear-shaped.
They do.
So how does the system police itself when standard 4, the complaints standard, is breached?
Standard 4 mandates clear, auditable processes, things like checking your identity upon collection. But the guidance actually outlines some specific examples of complaints that paint quite a picture.
Yes, I saw those. Things like GPs unilaterally sending all their patients to one pharmacy without even asking.
Or pharmacies digitally claiming patients without their consent. Or, of course, the illicit gift-giving we mentioned.
The black market toasters. So if I'm a patient and I've been caught up in this muddle, what is the hierarchy of complaint?
If you're aggrieved, your first step is to take it up directly with the offending pharmacy or GP practice.
Give them a chance to sort out an honest administrative error, I suppose.
Right. But if it remains unresolved, or you suspect foul play, it escalates to the Integrated Care Board, the ICB.
Can the ICB act as the referee?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ICBs and the NHS hold ultimate responsibility for ensuring fair play in their region. They police the system.
Well, that brings us to the end of our journey today. It's fascinating because, as we said at the start, the Electronic Prescription Service sounds like a dry bit of digital plumbing.
Just moving ones and zeros around.
Exactly. But in reality, it is a carefully orchestrated system built entirely around your sovereignty as a patient. From banning inducements to forcing tech giants to show you all your options, your prescriptions remain firmly your choice.
They do. And, I think there is a final, rather provocative thought we can draw from all this.
No, go on.
It goes back to that strict NHS rule we discussed. A previous nomination is no guarantee of future intent.
Right.
If the NHS treats our medical choices with such a rigorous demand for continuous present tense consent,
Yeah.
I'm afraid it makes you wonder about the rest of our lives.
That's what I mean.
Well, how many other areas of our digital and consumer lives are currently operating on outdated assumptions of our consent, simply because it's convenient for their system?
Goodness, that is a point. Social media, online shopping.
Exactly. They assume what you want today based on what you clicked on a year ago. The NHS refuses to do that.
That is a brilliant thought to leave you with today. Something to mull over the next time you encounter a targeted advert. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden architecture of your local pharmacy. We hope you feel a little more informed about your rights. Until next time, stay curious.